Hey all, in our second episode of Working with Maps, we're going to make a filled map. In our last episode, we made this symbol map where each circular symbol depicts the sales based on size and the profit based on color for each of the cities in which we made sales or in which we made deliveries. In this episode, we're going to work on a filled map. So a filled map is great if you've got one variable. So let's look at sales. And with one geographical variable, so let's start with state. I'll double click state and it will send a symbol to all of my states. I've got to first check on my unknowns. I've got 3. Let's look here and correct them. Most likely with our issues here, it's because I actually don't know why those would be, but let's assign them from whatever country or region that state is in. And now we have no issues. That's fantastic. Also, just to simplify things, let's look only at the United States. So we'll add country or region to filter. We'll deselect Canada and we'll hit OK. And that'll zoom us in nicely on the lower 48. Okay. So to take a look at profit for each of these states, all we need to do is grab profit, drag it into color. It has defaulted to giving us, I'm kidding on profit, we said sales. Let's do sales. Profit is interesting too, but let's do sales. The reason I want to do sales is because it gives us a little bit more to work with in terms of adjusting the color. The default color that Tableau is going to give you if all the values are positive is going to be this like tealy aqua color. And there's a few things we can play with. So if we go to the colors card and we select, well, let's start here with opacity. We can swing this all the way to the right, and these are completely opaque. You can't read anything from the underlying map. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you can swing it all the way to the other end, and the colors that differentiate the levels of sales for each state are barely visible. So, somewhere, depending on your application, I like to see, at least for this application, a little bit of what's going on behind, but if you're expecting people to rely on the tooltip and you want to make it opaque, that's fine too. I'm going to let that ring because it's been ringing and I've restarted recording already a number of times, and I just am not doing it. I don't think that person really wants to talk to me. So here's our default teal, but let's edit. Let's see what our choices are. We can select a different palette, right? That blue teal, that's the default. We could do a solid blue. All right. I encourage you to explore, but what I want to do here is this temperature diverging. Why? Well, the areas with hot sales are kind of orange, and then we've got a green for less popular or less areas where we've got lower sales. I like clicking use the full range so that our lowest value will be the most bold version of the color on the scale. And then let's click OK. So the reason why I like this color palette for this data is because sales really are driven by performance in a handful of hot states with a few sort of trailing behind. In California, our sales are $457,000, followed by New York at $310,000, Texas at $170,000, Washington at $138,000. And then after that, these other green colored states have much lower levels of sales, although Pennsylvania is pretty high, but you can see that from the color. So I think that works pretty well. And so now here, if we have a good tooltip, so let's address our tooltip really quickly. Our tooltip, let's go state above country. Oh, let's go state. Actually, we don't need country at all since we're all in the United States. State and sales. There we go. Texas, sales 170,000. Pretty good. We can leave this looking solid. So we'll change our title to sales by state. And we will call this tab map sales. All right, and for what might be the shortest video we're gonna do, I'm gonna stop here because we're gonna get a little more complicated in the next one, and I think it would be nice just to start from the beginning. All right, see you guys soon.